3 cartridges, 1 steel range, and I'm about to ruin your next ammo purchase. Look, your grandfather's 30-06 was putting meat in the freezer before color television even existed, and it's still doing the job today while the internet keeps begging you to buy something newer. Then here comes the 6.5 Creedmoor, promising you laser flat trajectories and almost no recoil. Just wait until you see what it actually costs you at the counter. And the 308? Everybody calls it boring, old news, a range toy for guys who supposedly don't know any better. Here's the deal. Boring feeds families. Boring wins wars. And by the time this video is over, one of these 3 is going to prove that reliability beats hype every single time. You just don't know which one yet. 6.5 Creedmoor is up first, and honestly, it earns that spot because it is the newest name on this list, and the one causing the most noise online. Here is the deal on where this round actually came from. Back in the early 2000s, a ballistics engineer named Dave Emery over at Hornady teamed up with Dennis DeMille from Creedmoor Sports with one very specific mission. They wanted a short-action cartridge built from the ground up for competitive long-range shooting, something that could run circles around the 308 out past 600 yards without beating up the shooter. That round hit the market in 2007, and it did not take long for hunters to notice what the competition crowd already knew. Now for the specs. 6.5 Creedmoor typically feeds on bullets anywhere from 95 grains all the way up to 160 grains. But the sweet spot that shows up in most factory boxes sits around 120, 129, 140, and 143 grains. A standard 140 grain load leaves the muzzle around 2,700 feet per second, generating somewhere close to 2,200 foot-pounds of energy right out of the barrel. Compare that to the other 2 rounds on this list, and you will notice something right away. This is not the hardest hitting cartridge at the muzzle. Felt recoil backs that up too. In a typical bolt gun, this round kicks noticeably softer than the other 2, running close to 30% lighter on free recoil compared to the 308. That is a polite tap on the shoulder, not a punch. Time for the gel test simulation. Picture the block sitting downrange. Up close, inside 400 yards, this bullet does not hit as hard as the bigger 30 caliber rounds on this list. And honestly, that gap is real. But watch what happens as the distance stretches out. Because of a long, slender bullet shape with a seriously high ballistic coefficient, this round barely slows down and barely drops compared to a stubby 30 caliber pill of similar weight. At 500 yards, it has already dropped roughly 33 inches from a 200-yard zero, where the 308 has fallen past 41 inches, and the 30-06 sits around 37 inches. Push that out to 800 yards, and the gap widens even further, with the Creedmoor sitting close to 37 inches flatter than the 308.
Impact!
On top of that, this bullet stays supersonic out past 1,400 yards in most conditions, while a 308 loaded with heavy match bullets starts wobbling into that transonic zone around 1,200 yards. Translation: past 500 yards, this round simply refuses to lose the fight. Under the hood, here is the mechanic's insight that explains all of that. The bullet itself uses a long ogive and boat tail design that slices through air resistance far more efficiently than a standard 30 caliber bullet of the same weight. That shape is why ballistics nerds obsess over this cartridge. It needs a fast rifling twist, something in the range of 1 turn in every 8 inches, just to stabilize those long, heavy for caliber bullets properly. Get that twist rate wrong, and none of this ballistic magic happens. There is also a consistency story here that the marketing rarely mentions. Because the case was engineered from scratch around modern extruded powders, standard deviation numbers on quality match ammunition run impressively tight, which is part of why this round found a home in competitive circles before it ever showed up on a hunting camp table. Now the wallet test, and here comes the deal breaker. Street price on quality 6.5 Creedmoor ammunition runs noticeably higher than either of the 30 caliber options on this list. And if your local shop got hit by a rush, good luck finding a full case sitting on the shelf. Barrel life adds another wrinkle here too. A match-grade 6.5 Creedmoor barrel typically holds tight accuracy for around 2,000 to 2,500 rounds before the throat erosion starts opening up your groups. That is a real cost if you are the type who shoots a lot of practice ammo before hunting season. Ballistics nerds love the flat trajectory this round delivers. Budget hunters feel the sting every single time they check out at the register. I already know the long-range crowd is loading up the comment section right now. Go ahead, sound off below if you think flat trajectory and low recoil beat everything else on this list, because our next contender is about to make a very different argument. Stepping up the game, now we get serious with a true legend of the American rifle world, the 30-06 Springfield. Let's talk about where this round came from, because the history here runs deep. This cartridge was adopted by the United States military all the way back in 1906, which is exactly where that name comes from. It armed American soldiers through 2 world wars and the Korean conflict before finally handing the torch to the 7.62 NATO round. But here is the twist. Instead of fading into history, it became the king of North American big game hunting, mostly because of one simple advantage. It feeds on an enormous range of bullet weights, everything from 110 grains up past 220 grains, giving hunters options the other 2 rounds on this list simply cannot match. Now for the specs. A typical 165 grain hunting load leaves the barrel around 2,800 feet per second, producing close to 2,800 foot-pounds of energy at the muzzle. That is a serious jump in raw output compared to the 6.5 Creedmoor. And if you want to load up something heavier, this case has the capacity to handle it without breaking a sweat. But that power comes with a real cost on the shoulder. This round kicks noticeably harder than the other 2 on this list, an angry mule of a recoil impulse, especially in a lightweight mountain rifle. Time for the gel test simulation. In the block, this round opens up wide fast. Mass retention is strong thanks to the heavier bullet options available, and the energy transfer close to the surface is dramatic. Old-school terminal performance built to put big game down hard at moderate range. Trajectory-wise, it tracks closely with the 308 out to around 400 yards, dropping close to 19 inches from a 200-yard zero. But that gap opens up past 500 yards because most factory loads lean on heavier, less aerodynamic bullets than what you typically find in 308 or 6.5 Creedmoor factory ammunition. This is not the flattest shooter on the list past 600 yards, but at real-world hunting range, nothing on this list hits harder. Here is the mechanic's insight worth remembering. This case holds a longer powder column than either of the 2 short-action rounds on this list, which is the entire reason it can safely push bullets all the way up past 200 grains without straining pressure limits. More case capacity, more powder, more push. That is not marketing hype, that is just physics. And because this cartridge has been in continuous production for well over a century, bullet makers have had generations to refine every possible weight and shape for it. So whatever job you need done, there is almost certainly a purpose-built 30-06 load already sitting on a shelf somewhere waiting for you. Now the wallet test. Sets you back about the same as 308 ammunition in most cases, and availability is excellent almost anywhere in the country, from a big box store to a mom-and-pop gun counter in the middle of nowhere. Barrel life sits close behind the 308 too, though that bigger powder charge does shave a few hundred rounds off the top before accuracy starts to fade. But here comes the deal breaker, and this time it is a performance quirk, not a money issue. That extra punch on paper translates directly into extra punishment on your shoulder. Flinch once with this round on a lightweight rifle, and your follow-up shot down range is garbage. A mushy trigger session behind a hard-kicking rifle is how misses happen in the field. This one hits harder than anything else on this list, and it will drop nearly any animal walking across North America. But stick around, because the round that takes the crown tonight is not the one putting up the biggest numbers on paper. Sometimes reliability beats raw power, and you are about to see exactly why. Now we get to the one that actually earns the crown, and I promise you it is not the round with the flashiest spec sheet. Slinging 7.62 downrange since the Korean War era, this is the .308 Winchester. Here is where this cartridge comes from. Right after World War II wrapped up, the United States military went looking for a replacement for the aging .30-06, something that could match its performance but fit inside a shorter, more compact action. Advances in powder technology through the 1950s made that possible, and the result hit civilian shelves in 1952 as the .308 Winchester, essentially the commercial twin of military 7.62 NATO ammunition. That military pedigree is exactly why this round became one of the most trusted names in both combat and hunting camps around the world. Now for the specs. This round typically eats bullets somewhere between 125 and 180 grains, with 150 and 168 grain loads dominating the market. A standard 168 grain match load leaves the muzzle around 2,650 feet per second, generating close to 2,670 foot-pounds of energy. On paper, that sits right in the middle of the other two rounds on this list. Nothing flashy. Recoil sits in the same middle ground too, running close to 15 foot-pounds of free recoil in a typical bolt gun, mild enough for a full power cartridge that most shooters describe as manageable, even after a long day at the range. Time for the gel test simulation. In the block, this round produces a balanced wound channel, wide enough to put game down clean, deep enough to reach the vitals at realistic hunting distances. Inside 400 yards, it hits noticeably harder than the 6.5 Creedmoor, though that advantage narrows fast the further you push it down range. At 500 yards, both rounds land in almost the exact same energy window, and honestly, past that point, the flatter shooting Creedmoor starts to pull ahead on paper. But here is the part the spec sheet crowd always misses. 95% of the shots hunters actually take in the real world happen well inside 400 yards, and at that range, this round has never once been the weak link. Under the hood, here is the mechanic's insight that separates this round from the pack. The shorter case and shorter bolt throw of the .308 design allows tighter chamber tolerances and faster, more consistent cycling than a longer action cartridge. Decades of military and competition load development have also driven standard deviation and extreme spread numbers down to some of the tightest in the industry, meaning shot after shot leaves the barrel at nearly identical velocity. That consistency is not a marketing buzzword. It shows up as tighter groups on paper and fewer surprises in the field. Add in the sheer volume of load data available for this case, decades of match shooters and hunters tweaking powder charges and seating depths, and you end up with a cartridge that has effectively been perfected by committee over the better part of 70 years. Now the wallet test, and this is where the .308 closes the deal for good. Because this case shares its dimensions with military 7.62x51 ammunition, it gets manufactured by the pallet load on machinery that never stops running. The damage to your wallet on quality practice ammunition sits well under $1 a round, and even match-grade hunting loads still undercut both of the other rounds on this list, almost everywhere you look. Barrel life seals the deal completely. A well-maintained match-grade .308 barrel holds tight accuracy out to around 5,000 rounds, more than double what you get out of a Creedmoor barrel, and comfortably ahead of a .30-06. Here is exactly why this round takes the throne tonight. It delivers almost the same knockdown authority as the .30-06, without that angry mule of a recoil impulse beating up your shoulder on every single shot. and it slings downrange for a fraction of the cost per round of the 6.5 Creedmoor, while still holding a flat enough trajectory to handle the vast majority of real-world hunting shots without a second thought. The Creedmoor wins on paper past 600 yards. The 30-06 wins on raw energy up close. But the .308 Winchester wins, where it actually counts, in the field, on your shoulder, and every single time you check out at the register. Look, chase the hype round if that is what gets you excited about a new rifle build. Nothing wrong with that, and if your shooting diet is built entirely around targets past 600 yards, the 6.5 Creedmoor earns every bit of its reputation. If you need to put down the biggest animal on the mountain and recoil does not scare you, the 30-06 will never let you down either. But when reliability, cost, recoil, and real-world performance all have to agree on one single answer for the widest range of shooters out there, the old warhorse still runs the table, and it is not particularly close. Train hard, stay safe, and I will see you downrange.